Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about how I use YouTube for my English learning. Most of people use YouTube just to watch English learning content and I do that too. But over time, I found a slightly different way to use YouTube that helped me practice speaking and understand English more effectively. So, in this episode, I want to share that method and explain why it works for me. So, without delaying, let's go to the conversation. Hi, on today's discussion, I actually intend to talk about how I use YouTube for my English learning. I know in traditionally most people are using YouTube as a way of uh, watching the English learning content, and I also publish this type of English learning content to my YouTube channel. But the way I use YouTube content into my English practice is somewhat different. And I think this will be a good insight for listeners who are listening to this. And I think this will be a good method if they could adapt into their life, because I have been found that this method is giving me a quite a good result. So let's have a discussion about that.
That's a strong idea, and your message is clear. I'll first give you a natural corrected version, then brief teacher style feedback, and then we'll continue the discussion. Here's a smooth, natural version. Today, I want to talk about how I use YouTube for my English learning. Traditionally, most people use YouTube to watch English learning content, and I also create this type of content on my own YouTube channel. However, the way I use YouTube for my English practice is a little different. I think this could be a valuable insight for listeners because it's a method they can adapt to their own lives. I found that this approach gives me quite good results. So let's talk about it. Now, quick feedback like a real English teacher. You used good structure and flow. That's a big strength. A few small improvements. On today's discussion, today I want to talk about sounds more natural. Intend to talk about is correct, but want to talk about feels more confident and conversational. Adapt into their life, adapt to their life. You repeated I think many times. Reducing repetition makes your speech sound more fluent. Overall, this sounds like spoken English for a podcast or YouTube video, which is great. Now, let me ask you something important to move forward. When you say your method is somewhat different, what exactly do you do differently with YouTube? Do you focus more on speaking, shadowing, note taking, or something else?
No, not exactly. So I think most of the time, especially in my previous scenarios, what I used to do was basically watching all of this YouTube content, like even if it is a grammar lesson or some comprehensible input scenario like a short story or a short video clip about explaining certain thing in English. But right now, I kind of change the method I was used in previous time. I mean, as the same way I am consuming all of this information from the YouTube, but on top of that, now I trying to make it more engaging or incorporating into my speaking practices. Especially, for example, now with this advancement of AI and the AI technologies, what I am doing is After watching a certain YouTube video, I try to share that YouTube video into a AI chatbot like ChatGPT or Gemini and trying to have a conversation based on whatever I watched. Because in that way, especially, it makes me help to understand that I understand the content and express my ideas based on whatever I watch. So for example, if I learn about some vocabulary, it actually gives me a chance to use that vocabulary during that conversation because I ask from the AI to ask me a question from the video, and as well as sometimes I am trying to explain what I learned from that video.
Nice. This is a very solid idea, and you explained it thoughtfully. You're already thinking like a learner who reflects on his process. Let me help you polish the language and sharpen the message. First, here's a natural, fluent version of what you said. In the past, what I usually did was simply watch YouTube content. It could be a grammar lesson or some kind of comprehensible input, like a short story or a short video explaining something in English. I was consuming a lot of information, but mostly in a passive way. Now I've changed the method I used before. I still consume the same type of content on YouTube, but I try to make the process more engaging and more connected to my speaking practice. With the recent advancement of AI technologies, what I do is this. After watching a YouTube video, I share it with an AI chatbot like ChatGPT or Gemini, and then I have a conversation based on what I watch. This helps me in two main ways. First, it allows me to check whether I really understood the content. Second, it pushes me to express my own ideas based on the video. For example, if I learn new vocabulary, I get a chance to actually use that vocabulary during the conversation. Sometimes I ask the AI to question me about the video, and other times I try to explain what I learned in my own words. Now, teacher style feedback, short and focused, in previous time, in the past, or before. You often said, what I'm doing is, native speakers prefer what I do is. It makes me help to understand. It helps me understand. Great use of example. That makes your explanation clear and convincing. Your idea flow is logical. You just needed cleaner transition. Now let me guide you a bit deeper, like a mentor. What you're doing is active learning, not passive consumption. That's why you're seeing better results. You're forcing your brain to recall information, rephrase it, and use it in real communication. That's powerful. For your YouTube discussion or podcast, the next strong step would be to answer this question. How is this method different from just watching and moving on? If you want, you can try answering that now in your own words, and I'll help you refine it even more.
Yeah. So I think it actually helps me to basically express certain thing in my own way. So for example, sometimes even I watch some of these complex topic like the self-improvement content and scientific content related to the enhancing our capabilities. So in that kind of situation, I think it kind of way helping me that understanding what actually meaning on that video because I think in most of the AIs are now capable of answering for our our questions. Sometimes even I used to watch these advanced English conversational videos where I don't understand anything, but when I encounter with something like that, I copy the YouTube URL and paste it into this AI platform and ask it to firstly give me and explain it what is the video is about in simplest language. So I think in here, user might need to be clever enough to understand what is his level first, because I know what is my English level. I am I am around A1 to B1 level based on my previous assessment. So I am asking it to make it understandable for my level. So it actually breaks down all these sentences and the vocabulary that used in that video and give me a brief idea about what it actually about. So in that way, I think I was able to understand more clearly what the content is about. I think it helps me to understandability of my English. Still I am struggling with understanding all of these, this advanced grammar structure and sentences structure and vocabulary in English. Yet I think I was able to understand the core concept on whatever the video that is mentioning in, what I watched. So that is something I improved using this method.
You're explaining this really thoughtfully. The idea is strong. You just needed a bit of tightening in the language so your message lands clearly. I'll do the same 3 steps again. First, here's a natural, fluent version of what you said. I think this method helps me express ideas in my own way. Sometimes I watch quite complex content, such as self improvement videos or scientific topics related to improving our ability. In those situations, this approach really helps me understand the actual meaning of the video. Nowadays, most AI tools are capable of answering our questions. Sometimes I watch advanced English conversation videos where I don't understand much at all. When that happens, I copy the YouTube link and paste it into an AI platform. First, I ask it to explain what the video is about in very simple language. At this point, the learner needs to be honest about their English level. I know my level is somewhere between A1 and B1 based on previous assessments, so I ask the AI to explain the content at my level. It breaks down the sentences and vocabulary used in the video and gives me a clear overview of what it's about. Because of this, I can understand the core idea of the content, even though I still struggle with advanced grammar, sentence structures, and vocabulary. I may not understand everything perfectly, but I can grasp the main concept of what the video is trying to say. That's something I've clearly improved by using this method. Now, brief teacher style feedback. It kind of way helping me. It really helped me, or it helped me. What actually meaning on that video? The actual meaning of the video. Sentence structure. Excellent use of self reflection. That's advanced thinking, even if your English level is still growing. Now, as your guide, let me point out something important. What you described is meta learning. You're not just learning English, you're learning how you learn English. That's why this method feels effective. For your discussion or YouTube talk, a powerful closing idea would be something like, you don't need to understand everything. You need to understand enough to explain it in your own words. If you want, try saying that idea in your own English, as if you're speaking to your audience. I'll help you polish it into a strong closing statement.
So I think whenever it is possible, you don't need to understand everything, but you just need to try to understand what the message is about. So in that way, I think it will be easy for us to learn the language and grasp the core idea about what is actually going on.
Yes, this is a very good closing idea. The message is clear and mature. Let me polish it and then give you a short guide on why it works so well. Here's a natural, confident version you can actually use as your closing line. So, whenever possible, you don't need to understand everything. You just need to understand what the message is about. In that way, learning the language becomes easier, and you can still grasp the core idea of what's really going on. Now, quick teacher feedback. Whenever it is possible, whenever possible. Avoid repeating I think at the end. Ending confidently sounds stronger. Your idea of progression is logical and clear. That's a big improvement. And now, as your guide for improvement, what you just expressed is something even advanced learners forget. Many people stop learning because they chase perfection. You're choosing clarity over perfection. And that's exactly how real language learning happens.
So, as we come to the end of the discussion, I want to give this message to you. You don't need to understand everything to learn English. You just need to understand the main message. When you focus on the core idea and try to express it in your own words, learning becomes easier and more practical. If this method sounds useful, you can try it in your own way and adjust it to your level and just do the trial and error what is actually works for you. Thank you for the listening and I'll see you in the next episode.